Aderince Cecile was born on the 1929 an American poet, essayist, and feminist writer. One of the most widely read and influenced poet of the second half of the 20th century. She talks about a woman's experiences in her married life. She has tried to explore the inner feeling of a woman who is living under the dominance of man. So in this paragraph, we comes to know that how the Adrian Cecil um, was born on the 1929 and was a American poet, essayist, and feminist writer, and one of the most widely read and influenced poet of the second half of the 20th century. She talks about a woman's experiences in her married life. She has tried to explore the inner feeling of a woman who is living under the dominance of the man. For example, in the patriarchal society, every woman is have to live according to the man rules and regulation, which is explained and described by the poem of the Aunt Jennifer Tiger. Aunt Jennifer's tiger spans across the screen and center today. So, in this first stanza, the poet says that one can easily sense Aunt's desire for the freedom and fearlessness through her design of tigers. Further, further she says that it is not possible for Aunt to achieve the freedom during her lifetime. She will attain it only after her death, but here also the irony of her life is that still she will be tied up with the shakeless in the form of her husband's wedding ring. The ring was the sole proof of the torture which she had faced from her husband. On the other hand, there are the trigger designed by the Aunt Jennifer, which will always depict her desire of living a fearless life by jumping proudly and bravely on the piece of cloth. Okay, so here we have some lines of the poem. First in the first stanza. In this first stanza, poet try to describe the desire of the Aunt Jennifer, who wants to live a freedom and fearless life, and she drawn a design of a tiger who is always live a freedom and full fearless life, and which describe and shows the desire of her inner feeling, and she will attend it only after her death. But here also the irony of her life is that is still she will be tied up with the shakeless in the form of her husband wedding ring. The ring was the sole proof of the torture which she had faced from her husband. On the other hand, there are the tigers designed by the Aunt Jennifer, which is always depicts her desire of living a fearless life by jumping proudly and bravely on the piece of the cloth. So by these lines, we comes to know that how the Aunt Jennifer inner feeling is um, full of fearlessness, and um, she is jumping proudly and bravely on the piece of the cloth where she have drawn the design of a tiger. Now in the next paragraph, the lady fingers, trembling with the fear of her husband, she is pursuing her hobby in her free time. But probably she is still afraid of her husband, who could scold her. Her fingers are so tired, tired of working endlessly all her life. The needle is so heavy for her to put out of the cloth. The word is uncle's wedding band was brought by her husband. It is his still today. So in this paragraph, we comes to know that how the lady finger is trembling while she is doing uh, embroidery on the piece of a cloth, and she wants to draw a tiger design, and how is her fingers and her hand is shaking by the trembling with the fear of her husband. She is pursuing her hobbies in her free time, but probably she is still in the fear of her husband who could scold her. Her fingers are so tired of working endlessly all her life. The needle is so heavy for her. While she is trying to embroider a design of a tiger, she feels that she is not able to do it properly, just because of her fear of her husband who can scold her um, while she is doing her while she is pursuing her hobby in her free time. The needle is so heavy for her to put out of the cloth. And the world's uncle wedding band was brought by her husband is still today. Okay, so now the next paragraph here the poet describes the fear of the Aunt Jennifer towards her husband. She says that while she is doing embroidery, her fingers are shaking, quivering with the fear of her husband, and her husband doesn't approve of her hobby of embroidery. Therefore, she trembles while she is embroidering the piece of cloth. It has become difficult for her to pull down and up the needle. Then she described the wedding ring, which was given by her uncle to Aunt Jennifer on her wedding day. She says that it is a kind of a burden for her to wear this ring. She has been tortured by her husband so much, therefore, this wedding ring is which could have been a wonderful gift for her, but seems like a burden for her. So, here is a line of a um, uh, like wedding ring, a wedding ring which is gifted by her uncle, and which could be a beautiful gift for her, but it seems like her like a burden on her because she had been tortured by her husband, and that's why this wedding ring is so heavy for her, and it seems like a burden on her, and which could be a good gift for her, but is still is look like a burden on her, and she really feels that, and the way she is embroidering the piece of the cloth, and her finger and her hands are shaking with the fear of her husband while she pursuing her hobbies in her free time is also shows us the patriarchal rules and regulation over the women's um, by the men's, which are so dominant, and which makes the woman so frightening and terrified from them as they are doing their own mm, as they are doing their own work and wants to live their own life in their own way. So in the next paragraph, Aunt Jennifer wished to live a free and fearless life is indicated by her choice of design as tiger. It shows her innermost desire of being strong and fearless, which has been overpowered by her husband, which probably her ordeal will end up her death. So by this paragraph, we comes to know that how the Aunt Jennifer wished to live a free life, fearless life, which is indicated by her choice of design is of tiger, and it shows her innermost desires, wants to live a fearless and um, and strong life, and which has been overpowered by her husband, and which she can leave only after the death of her husband. And before the death of her husband, it is not possible to live a beautiful and fearless life. What she wants is to live, and her threatening and shaking finger will be put on the rest. But still, even after the death, the ring shall remain on her hand. For example, her husband rules over her. Um, um, mm, the way rings is still remaining on her hand, the rules and regulations are still overpowered her with the fear of her husband. ठीक है? And her husband rules over her. After her death, her desire of freedom and fearlessness shall remain alive in these tigers which has embroidery. And आंट जेनिफर की जो डिज़ायर है एक मतलब फ्री और fearless लाइफ जीने की, which could be remain alive as she designing a embroidery of a tiger. And but even after the death of her husband, she is still have a burden and fear of her husband. Uh, before his death, she is also following the rules and regulation which is made by her husband. But still, the way the ring is remaining on her hand, and in the same manner, the rules and regulations are still in her mind, and which controlling her body language and her hands and all the parts of the body, in the way she is shaking her hand with the fear of her husband. So by these lines we comes to know that how the even after the death, the way the ring is remaining on her hand, the rules and regulation are still alive even after the death of her husband, and she will be able to live a freedom and fearless life even probably in the same manner even the after of the death of her husband. So now we have a theme of the poem. In the poem, the poet addresses the issue of male dominance. ठीक है? The theme of the poem is to highlight the struggle and conflict a woman faces in the male chauvinistic society. The Aunt Jennifer is the protagonist of the poem and exemplifies the women all over the world who are the victim of the persecutions at the hand of the patriarchal system. Um, as we always know and experienced about the patriarchal chauvinistic systems in the society are still alive. Males are dominant all over the world, and they wants to dominate the woman in every way while she is want to fulfill her desire, while she wants to live a freedom and fearless life. They are always to they are always there um, to point out them and make a dominance on them to live in their manner, not in her manner. They always pursuing them to live in their manners. So there is a male dominance example which can be shows in the patriarchal society, chauvinistic systems in the society, and which are still remaining in the society, and which makes the woman uh, uh, full of fear and frightening her body language, and while she is doing her work in their own way, and while she wants to fulfill her desire in her free time. By the example of the Aunt Jennifer, we can comes to know that how the even after the death of her husband, she is still remaining and living the same rules and regulations life uh, uh, as the ring is remaining on her hand, in the same manner the rules and regulation which is made by her husband is still remaining in her mind, and she is still living hmm, the fearful life of her husband, or which shows the all women's uh, fear and frightening and plightful conditions of the women who are not able to live their life in their own manner. Okay? And now we have some literary devices of the poem. In the poem, there are beautiful words used by the poet. For example, there is an example of a prance. Prance means walk or move around with a high, springy topaz. Topaz means a bright yellow color stone. Denizens, here an animal that lives or found in a particular places. Sleek means elegant. Sleek means elegant, and this kind of words are used by the poet, are beautifully used in the paragraphs of the lines of the poem, which indicated a fearless tiger and strong tiger who is living his um, her own life in her own in his own manner. ठीक है? How he is walking and move around the high springy topaz, and how the topaz is looking a bright yellow color stone. And denizen here an animal that lives or found in a particular places, and which indicated the strong and fearless. And sleek means elegant. So now we have our next literary devices is rhyming scheme. There is a rhyming scheme of AABB. If we read the poem properly, we can notice that there is a rhyming scheme of a AABB in the line of the poem, which is beautifully used by the poet. And there is a another literary device is alliteration. There is the alliteration of P is repeated in the prancing proud. Okay, alliterations means while the same words and are repeating together, and in order to indicate the beautiful meaning of the poem. There is a personification of the tiger. The tiger is personified throughout the poem when they are described as being proud, confident, and unfair of man. ठीक है? There is a personification of the tiger throughout the poem when they are desired as being proud and confident and unfair of men. And now we have the example and literary devices of the imaginary. There is a imagination um, means a sensory experience and creating a picture with words only for the reader. Hmm? There is a imagination means a sensory experience and creating a picture with the words only for the reader. Metaphor. There is a indirect comparison with a complete different things, for example bright topaz. ठीक है, यहाँ पे एक मेटाफोरिकल डिवाइस का यूज़ किया गया है जो कि इनडायरेक्ट कंपैरिजन है विद अ कंप्लीट डिफरेंट थिंग, फॉर एग्जाम्पल ब्राइट टॉपर्स. So now we have the conclusion of the poem. In the poem, poet describes a woman's rules and strictness in the patriarchal society. She has to live the constant fear from her husband. Even after the death of her husband, she has to live in the same manner. The way she is living her whole life before his death. ठीक है? As for example, Aunt Jennifer described by the symbol of her ring, which is still remaining on her hand, and she is still overpowered and still have a fear of her husband on her mind, on her body language, and she is still doing and living the same life that she had living in the in her before her husband death, and she is still ruled over from the fear strictness even after the death of her husband. So, in the for example, by the Aunt Jennifer, we can comes to know that how the women are dominant by the males, and in the patriarchal society, even after the death of her husband, of their husband, they have to live in the same manner they are living before the death of their husbands, and they are constant living their life in the constant fear of their husband fear, and they are dominated by the patriarchal society, which make them frightening and weak, and her their desire to live a freedom and fearless life, which is shown by the symbol and design of the tiger in the poem of the Aunt Jennifer. So we comes to know that how the her desire to live a fearless and strong life um, is still remaining in her, but she is still overpowered by her husband rules and regulations. I hope you like this video, which is very important according to your examination point of views. If you have um, any kind of questions which is indicated the Aunt Jennifer's tiger, and you can write your answer in the same manner. First of all, you have to write the introduction of the Aderince Cecile, and how the Aunt Jennifer tiger prance across a screen, and you have to describe the whole lines of the poem, uh, and the meaning and the beautiful words are used by the poet and literary devices. You have to mention them also, and how the she is trying to write all the things, and she is feeling which kind of feeling she have in her heart and mind. You have to explain them, and by the design of the tiger, how she is um, showing her desire, innermost desire to live a fearless and strongless life, and literary devices and some most important words which is used by the poet, and for at the last you have to write the conclusion of the poem, and after that the answer will be complete. And I hope you like this video. Thank you so much.